Hi. Today for the social work 505, I'm just supposed to go over a few bullet points and kind of give some of my ideas. And so I need to identify two facets of social work history, which may include movements, efforts, policies, or organizing that resonates with you. And so one of the things that really resonated me that was powerful and impactful was the student movement in the 1960s. And I know this just from studying different sociology histories that this did continue into the 1970s as well, but that social work had kind of taken like a more passive approach, and it took like the students to go and advocate and start like speaking out against these policies to reignite social work's advocacy route again. And I thought that this was really powerful because we're here in social work and we're here learning about advocacy and how important it is for marginalized groups and just for the welfare of society in general. And that the students really did make a difference back in the day. And that is something that is powerful to me right now as somebody who's a student in social work. And then, the next one asked me to name one that had a negative impact. And something that I actually did not know from our readings was that social workers had such a large role to play in World War II when we displaced Asians and Asian Americans into camps, and that a lot of social workers helped with that, and it's considered like a black spot in the social work history. I did not know that we had done that, and I feel like that was really negative, and it impacted a lot of Asian families, and it was essentially racism, to force people, that we associated with Japan at the time into camps, and it was really offensive to read about because it just reminded me of like how easy it is to let fear um, overcome like our senses of equality. And then I need to identify like a specific individual of historical significance in social work who inspired me. And so I picked Dorothy Height, and I just really like her because at the time that she started really advocating and like coming out to help people in social work was at a time where African Americans were not getting the social welfare that they needed, and there was a lot of systematic racism and welfare racism put into place that was like kind of preventing them from being able to get the necessary help that they needed. And so like she led the National Council for Negro Women for 40 years, and under her leadership this organization like really focused on anti-lynching campaigns and advocated for like changing the criminal justice system to like be more fair and to like not discriminate against people, and she also advocated and promoted for voter registration. And I just felt like that she was really a powerful woman in history. And then sorry, my animals decided that they wanted to fight. And so then I need to identify like a project or movement from our movements and activism library that aligns with my values. And so um, the one that I picked was NAB's Reese's for Trauma Informed Resources for Boarding School Survivors. And I feel like that this is really important because this is something that we're still dealing with the consequences even recently. And like the trauma is still very, very prevalent because it was still active in the community. In fact, where I was growing up in Brigham City, Utah, we still have some of those abandoned boarding schools sitting around near the extension at Utah State University. And it was like a really like hard situation because I would hear my parents talking about the schools growing up, and like how my dad played basketball with some of the kids who were from the boarding schools, and that their schools would like go against that school. And it was also hard to find out that like my religious organization had played such a key part in that process and in that system. And it was like a it was definitely a really hard um, situation to learn about when I was younger, and to find out like the horror and the trauma behind it. And so I think like to kind of overcome that, we definitely need to provide resources for the people who are experiencing trauma from that, or who are trying to reconnect with a culture that they never experienced, because they were taken away from their families, and and the trauma from that can probably be so severe between parents and even children and siblings who are all separated from one another. And that definitely needs to be addressed, and investigations need to go on about like the abuse that happened. Canada has been doing so much research and so much like reviewing in their schools, and like trying to find out like exactly, trying to find out how to really create ways in which they can try to make that right. And yet our country is currently not doing that, and that's something that I think needs to be done.